Hello and welcome to Clean Class. My name is Tim, and I just want to tell you I'm so completely proud of you for tuning in today. I know that God has something powerful in store for your life. I want you to know this beyond the shadow of all doubt. You're going to get out of this what you put into it. And if you're serious about living life clean from pornography, lust addiction, from masturbation, from the things that hold men captive and that rob their destiny, God could absolutely help you do this. So I want to just set the tone, set an attitude of faith, set some expectation that you're going to get out of this what you put into it. And if you're serious about getting clean, God will absolutely meet you where you are. You're going to hear some fantastic testimonies of guys that have proven that this can happen in your life. You're going to hear some great tools. We're going to show you how. And at every end of every single session, you're going to be challenged with some practical things, some steps that you can take to help you live a clean life, clean from these things that have plagued you for so long. So if you're coming to this, maybe your marriage is in trouble, maybe you just want some help, maybe you've been clean before, but you've been struggling in this area, I just want to let you know that there is absolutely hope for you. If I can do it, if we can do it, you can do it. So check it out.
Hey guys, thanks for coming back for session 3 of Clean Class. We are so excited, right? We are glad you're back here. We know that you're working hard at this. In week 1, what we discussed was how the enemy is after your destiny, that he wants to take your legacy, and if he can seduce you, he can reduce you. So the enemy doesn't care about your sex life. What he cares about is the purpose that God has for you. If he can pull you from your destiny, if he can pull you from your legacy, he'll be happy to do it. In week 2, we talked about our relationship with God, not only as a son, but as a son-in-law. And I hope that challenged you and changed your perspective. I know it did for me when I first heard it. It made me look at it in a different way. And what today we're going to talk about today is not just how we stay away from lust and pornography, but why we need to stay away from it and our viewpoint in life. And there's a misconception that men have. There's a misconception that we believe that there's nothing wrong with it. I believe that a lot of men think that, well, it's not that big of a deal. We just keep going this way. And we talked last week about which way you point your sword. That when you're battling, you either point it towards lust and pornography and protect your family, your legacy, your kids, or you point it at your kids, your wife, and you protect your hidden sin. And we talked about God will not hide that secret. God is going to bring that out no matter what. And I hear it time and time again. I sit with guys, I have lunch with them, I have breakfast with them, and they go, man, I just can't believe I did it again. I can't believe that it came out. I don't know what to tell my wife. She found my computer or she found out that I made a mistake. Guys, God does not hide that from your wife. He loves her. It's his daughter. So today, though, we're going to dive in a little deeper, and we're going to talk about how lust and pornography impacts you. And we can go down pornography. There's all kinds of horrific things that happen with it. Just terrible things such as human trafficking, drug addiction, just people that have no hope. And that's sad and heartbreaking. It really is, and it breaks my heart to think of that. But like a lot of men, we sort of overlook that. We don't see the impact. We sort of just see our own, hey, it's not really hurting anyone. And we start to tell ourselves that lie that it doesn't really matter. It's not as big of a deal as we thought it was. And so today what I want to talk about is the 2 groups that are mostly impacted by you having lust issues and looking at pornography. And those 2 groups is your wife and your children. Yes. It's been proven that your wife, and when I say wife, if you're single, please hear me. You can have an impact on your future wife. Because you're starting these habits before you have to lead yourself before you're ever in marriage to lead someone else. So you're starting these habits early, and it's going to carry into your marriage. And it's going to carry in when you have children too. So right now, you got to start working on getting rid of this now. So I want to share with you how this impacts your wife, why this is important, why our wives actually are affected whether they know it or not, whether they know that you're struggling with lust and pornography or if they don't. And in Mark 10, 8 through 9, it says this. And the 2 will become one flesh. So they are no longer 2, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. See, when you get married, you enter a covenant, and it's with God, your wife, and you. And the 2 become one. So when we do things, whether our wives know it or not, it impacts them. It affects them. Our choices matter to our family. And statistics have shown that married women who are married to men that look at pornography, that have lust issues, the first thing that they have is they have a significant decrease in their self-esteem. See, your wife cannot be what you can find on a screen. You can change that any time you want. You can look at whatever you want, whatever you're craving, and your wife can't do that. And so she feels less than. She doesn't feel secure. She doesn't feel like she's wanted. And whether they know it or not, your wife wants security And when you're looking at pornography, what you're doing is you're sort of turning your back on her. It brings it down. The second thing is they start to suffer from depression. We see that women suffer from depression when men look at pornography, whether they know it or not. That relates into self-esteem, and it starts getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Women start to wonder, why am I even here? What am I doing? Am I even attractive to him anymore? Does he want me? Does he still choose me? And that's hard for women. And the third thing is they get weight gain then. These three things are impacts of you looking at pornography, whether you know it or not. See, we're connected. When we got married, we joined with our spouse spiritually. We became one. And so what we do matters. What they do matters. It works both ways. But as men, we're called to lead our families, to lead our wives. So it starts with lust and pornography. I'm amazed when I hear guys think that it's not that big of a deal and their marriage is not as good as they wish it could be. One of the questions I ask most men is rate your marriage from 1 to 10, and I know to deduct 2 points because usually if they have lust and pornography, they're over-evaluating where their marriage is at. When I sit with their wife, they're honest and say, no, it's just not there. And what we want, what our hope is for you, is not only to have your legacy and your destiny, but to have a healthy family. God created the family unit. That's what we want for you. We want a healthy marriage. It is the person that you'll be most intimate with in your entire life is your spouse. So it's important to walk pure. It's important to be clean. The next thing that I want to talk about is how this affects your children. And please hear me, guys, it matters. It matters to your kids. This is something I did not understand. This is something that I walked through, and I had to learn that I was putting things on my children that I had never had intention to. Yeah. See, I thought lust and pornography was only going to affect me. It wasn't going to impact my kids. Yeah. And what I found was this, that when children have a father that watched pornography, that deals with lust issues, whether they know it or not, when they have a father that commits adultery, 81% have a lower self-esteem. 81%. Your kids have a lower self-esteem because of that, whether they know it or not. 79% are impacted with their walk with Jesus. So it doesn't just impact your legacy, it impacts your kids' legacy. Because they'll never have direction if they don't have a relationship with Jesus. So you're setting your kids up for failure already as men, and that's not what we want to do. I know for me, I want my ceiling to be my kids' floor. Right. I want them to launch from where I finished. Yeah, I want more for them. I was amazed that 71% of our children are impacted their dating life because we look at pornography, how they view women, how they go out, how they date. This doesn't go just for the men, but the women too, how they should be treated. Yeah. So it affects and it impacts our sons and daughters. Yeah. It's both. 70% are impacted in their emotional well-being. That means their emotional well-being, how they feel about things, that security, that hope that they have, that innocence as a child. 69% of kids that have a father that look at pornography have their marriages affected. They bring it into. Wow. Whether they know it or not, they bring it into their marriage. Yeah. And this leads to 64% become addicted to sex, to pornography, to lust, and 62% have severe depression. See, guys, it matters what we do, whether people know it or not. It affects our kids. It affects our wife. It affects our own destiny. Yeah. That's right. It matters. It's bigger than just you. And I hear time and time again a guy go, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Trust me, I have this under control. And I would tell you this, by the statistics, you do not. I want to challenge you to change. Because if I can do it, you can do it. And we're not here judging you. We're not here trying to point out, well, this is what's wrong with this world. I'll be honest with you. I failed at all these things, of leading right, of making my wife feel secure. I burned a marriage down because I never got away from lust and pornography. It was something that I had to work on through my divorce to be able to work on myself and say, look, I'm just as much to blame. I misled. But I think we can change our future, and I think we need to address it. And I feel like if you go to church, please share this with one of your pastors. Yeah. Share this video with a pastor. Share it with a church leader. Share it with friends. Get together as a group and start talking about this. And 1 Corinthians 6:18 through 20 says this, flee from sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the sexual immorality person sins against his own body. Or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God. You are not your own. You were bought for a price. So glorify God with your body. See, Jesus gave his life for you. Your body matters. And he doesn't want you to sin against your own body, and we need to flee from it. And it's the only sin that's against our body. And I want to explain this more from a research and a clinical standpoint. See, when we have an orgasm, we release chemicals. It's one of the highest chemicals we can release. It's one of the highest pleasures that we have. So what we do is we start chasing that. And that starts at a young age. It can start with pornography. It can start with masturbation. It can start with lust. We just keep feeding that animal. And it grows and grows and grows. And what you do is this. As you release, as you have an orgasm, you actually start attaching yourself and hungering for whatever you're visually looking at. So if you're used to looking at multiple things online, switching it up, guess what? You're going to go in your real sex life and start looking for different things. It's going to pull you. It's going to affect you. If it's a fetish, you're going to crave that fetish in your marriage. There's things that it's going to pull you to because we have this thirst and this lust because that's what we looked at as our brain released these endorphins. It creates a ring the bell, feed the dog, where we just keep ringing the bell, feed the dog, ring the bell, feed the dog, ring the bell, feed the dog. And we've all done it. We go down that road and we become addicted to what we've released to, what we have an orgasm to. And this means like if I'm married to a blonde and I'm looking at brunettes online, it becomes a lot easier for me to let down my guard and have an affair with that new lady that started working with me that may be a brunette. You can't even guard yourself from it because what you're doing is you're constantly chasing that release. And then what you find is those boundaries just drop. What you look at matters. And you have to be clean. And as men, we have to retrain our brain. We have to retrain it. See, we struggle with, okay, so I've had years and years of looking at this. This is just who I am. But I don't believe that we need to stay there. So I want to challenge you. And guys, we all have these bands on. Guys here have rubber bands. I have a thick band on. And I want to challenge you on retraining your brain. See, it's not going to feel good, I'll be honest, because every time you look at a woman, every time you look at one lustfully, that's not your wife, you're going to snap yourself. It doesn't feel good. That actually hurt a little bit. But here's what you're doing. You are retraining what you're looking at. And if you do that for 30 days, you will cut out 80% of what you look at. And I want to be honest, I have time and time again where guys sit with me and go, Doug, I don't have an issue with lust. And I say, put the rubber band on for 30 days. Do this for 30 days for me, and we'll see what happens. And I get a text message after about day 3 that they say, my wrist is completely red. It hurts. I had one guy say, I've been snapping myself so much, my wrist is bleeding. I had to switch to the other arm. Because he didn't think he had an issue with looking. But what this does is it makes you aware. It makes you aware. And we have a choice. We have this radar as man. It's sort of a survival thing built in us by God that we know where things are without looking. You know, this is why we're good hunters. Let's be honest. We track. I mean, I have one of the best trackers in my group right here with me. But we have this radar that we just know where a good-looking woman is. Have y'all ever been at a gym and you're like, man, a squat rack, don't look over there. Don't look over there. You know, we know it. But most of us guys, we sit there and go, nothing wrong with looking, so I'm just going to glance. And what you're doing is you're training your brain to chase after that. So we have to retrain it. We have to snap ourselves. We have to start disciplining ourselves because it's the only way we can retrain our brain. Why do you need to do this? Because your legacy is at risk. What God has planned for you is at risk, and it is not worth it for a quick release. To trade your future, to trade God's plans for you, to trade that intimacy that you can have with your wife or future wife, it's not worth it, guys. It's just not. I heard a pastor once say this, and I thought when I was struggling, that's what I really want. And he said, my wife can be enough. My wife can be enough. And if that's the only thing you hear from me, start implementing these things so your wife can be enough. There's a reason why you married her. There's a reason why you chose her. There's a reason why she can live with you and deal with you and all your shortfalls. She puts up with me. I mean, my wife puts up with me. And so I would just encourage you that your wife can be enough. So good. God's blessing can flow when we remove the hidden sin. He can use us then. And imagine what your life would look like if you had no hidden sin at all. Imagine how freeing that would be to be able to walk up and say, I know I have problems and I know I have shortfalls, but I don't have any hidden sin. Because this is the one sin that we actually bury. It's one that we hide from others. You'll have more time to pursue God. You'll have more time to read your Bible. You'll have more time to talk to your wife. Purity helps us focus on God's will. It cuts down the amount of time that we're just drawn to our computer, our phone, that next high. Look at Job. Here's a man that was blessed because of his integrity. Joseph had a high position because he ran from sexual immorality. These guys did it, we can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. You need to hear that over and over, my friend. Yes. If I can do it, you can do it. Because I know there was a time in my life that I thought, that's great. These guys are sitting around in a circle talking about this, and that's great, but I can't do that. And what I found was God spoke to me one day and said, you know what, Doug, you don't even try. Wow. Yeah. I just had to try. And he changed my life. He gave me purpose. And we have to remember, Jesus felt every temptation we do. And that's mind-blowing to me as men. Sometimes we overlook. I think Jesus felt every temptation, and he knew not to sin, not to look that way, how to divert his eyes. And that's what we're called to do as men. It impacts your wife. It impacts your kids. It goes beyond you. And what you're passing down to them matters. I challenge you again, the 30 days with the rubber band, snapping yourself every time you look, and watch out how much differently you look at your wife in 30 days. Come on. Yeah. Imagine how good you feel if you're a single guy, knowing that you're not staring at every woman like it's a piece of meat at the counter. Yeah. It's important. Your thoughts will become clean. I want to talk to you about one more thing besides just the rubber band. The rubber band is a great consequence for looking. But what I want to talk about is when you trip up on pornography, or when you have a one-night stand, or if you sleep with your girlfriend, anything with sex outside of marriage, you have to start developing negative consequences, or else we think that there's no consequences at all. Yeah. Yeah. Your legacy is on the line. So please hear me. I'm going to ask you to start thinking about and start implementing some kind of punishment. So when you ring the bell and feed the dog, you have a punishment. You get that accountability around you so you can discuss that punishment. And it's great. When we did this in a small group, it's one of our favorite times. Everything in a small group stays in a small group, but we laugh at guys' punishments. What they come up with, what they say, hey, that's what I'm doing. So I'm going to be very vulnerable with you right now and share my punishment. If I look at pornography, I have to eat a small jar of mayonnaise. I was riding in the car the other day and I gagged thinking about mayonnaise, telling another guy that this was my punishment. Yeah. I just started gagging. I'm like, I can't do it. I don't know. I know that may sound weird to some of y'all. Some of y'all love mayonnaise. That's great. It's not my thing. and if I ever did anything beyond that, I would increase my punishment. When I was a single guy, I made sure that my punishment was way worse. So it was a jar of mayonnaise. As a single divorced guy, it was a jar of mayonnaise. If I would look at pornography, and if I had sex outside of marriage, it was going to be one of those big Sam's Costco jars. Yeah, and I see you don't like you do like mayonnaise, and you couldn't do it. See, and so what you have to do is you have to increase those stakes. Make it where the reward is not worth the consequence. We've had different ones like mayo. We've had hot sauce. We had a guy that ate the hottest hot sauce that you can buy. And one drop, I was sweating for 30 minutes because I was dumb enough to say, let me try it because I'm curious. We had another guy, he did community service. So he did 8 hours of community service if he screwed up because his time was so valuable and he was a busy guy, owned a business. Another one is one of our younger guys said, I'm going to give away my video game system and all my games. So you're talking $1,500 as a college student, and he's going to give it all away because he wants to be clean. He wants his legacy. One of my favorite ones I ever heard was we had a person that said, I'm going to give $1,000 to the opposite political party. Yeah. To the opposite political party. That's how serious guys are getting about being clean. And I want to challenge you to do the same thing. What would it take for you to walk away from that stuff? What is not worth it? It doesn't have to be just eating stuff. It can be anything that makes you uncomfortable that you know that it's not worth it. That's not worth that quick high. It's not worth attaching to it. It's not worth tearing down your legacy. Because God wants to use you. He has a purpose for you. And I would share this with you. Get some accountability people that you can share your punishment with. You can discuss how snapping your wrist is going. You can talk about how this process has changed you. It's important that you have accountability in your life. And we're going to dive deeper into that in the next session. But we need to be accountable. We need to stay on track because this is how we get our legacy, guys. Yeah. It affects your wife. It affects your kids. And you can do this. It's worth it. It's worth it for them. So let me pray for you, and then we'll wrap up this session. Lord, I thank you for each and every man that's on this session right now. I pray for them to have breakthrough. I pray for them to have accountability. I pray for them the next 30 days, Lord, as they wear their rubber band, that they notice that their looking decreases. Lord, I pray that they pick a punishment that is not worth that quick high of looking at pornography or sleeping with someone, and that they implement that punishment with their accountability. Lord, I pray for men to have their brains retrained so that they can start walking in your will and in your legacy. God bless.
Oh man, my life before Clean Class. Well, it was a big mess, to be honest. I grew up in church all my life. I was taught right and wrong from the beginning, but into my teen years, I started to really have issues with lust. And then as the internet came about, and probably in my later teen years with pornography available, then I just got addicted to that. And so I all the way through my 20s, I started to really see that. And then I got married around mid-20s, and I thought to myself, okay, this is where I can finally get a handle on it. I can, just believe that lie that the enemy tells you, like, oh, it'll just take care of itself. Well, that wasn't the case, and I just brought all that addiction into my life with my wife, and my kids were involved now, and man, it just spiraled out of control even worse. And so then 10 years into my marriage, I'm still hiding this sin, And so I finally was able to okay, I need to get some kind of accountability. And I looked for accountability, but I never really maybe my heart wasn't in it. I don't know, but I never really got deep into accountability where it really helped. Not until Clean Class, really. Well, with Clean Class, there's some techniques, there's different things that you can use as far as tools that are available. And that really made sense to me. There was the rubber band, there was the accountability, all those things. And so not only that, but when you get into a Clean Class and you actually start being around other guys and just experiencing I'm not the only one dealing with this. There's other guys here that deal with the same thing. The enemy will lie to you there and they'll tell you the only one. Well, so that, and then building that accountability with other guys is just so crucial. I think that's the most important thing. You cannot stay clean if you don't build that accountability and keep that accountability. So that's for me. Well, I've probably struggled with pornography, I would say about maybe 25 years, somewhere in there. And I've now been clean for 11 months. And I've never, before I tried to do it on my own, it never really worked. Not until clean and accountability did that really help a lot. Man, my life after clean, honestly, I've seen so many different things happening in my life, especially in my marriage, and how my wife knows now all my secrets. She knows that how I'm clean now, and it's just changed everything in our marriage. We're so much more intimate now in areas we never felt before. And so that was like a 180-degree turn there. And then also just with ministry and opportunities that God has brought about in my life, and areas that have even been clean. I've been able to lead some clean classes now, and that's been great. Just talking to guys through it and just saying, hey, we all deal with this. Let's figure out ways to get past it, and working with each other on that. And then also, even in money and finances, God has really been blessing me this year. I've never seen his blessing. He's just been pouring out not only abundance for me, but also just opening up doors in business and opportunities for me I've never had before. And I know all that happened because of Clean.